A little happy Friday for you folks. How we doing? It is Dave Ettinger, the host of the Dave Talk Sports podcast, episode number 37. On the way home, as you can see, I'm a little cheery, a little chippy, a little happy, a little whatever you want to call it. It's Friday. We like Fridays. August 9th, 6:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, you join me on the way home from CBS Sports Radio Network. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about the only thing there is to talk about. Football. That's football. Football. Yesterday, a little NFC, AFC East preview. And that's what we're going to do for the next couple days. We're going to take the East and the East, the North and the North, the West and the West, South and the South. We're going to compare them. So, today, we head that way. North of the border. Well, not north of the border, no offense, Canada, but we're going north. We're going to start with the AFC North. What I would call an interesting, intriguing division. Do you know who's going to win that division? Nope. Do I know who's going to win this division? I have an idea. I'm going to give you a prediction, but I got no freaking clue. And I don't think anybody knows. And then you move to the NFC North. It's interesting. It could be interesting. The Bears, they did their thing last year. The question is, can they repeat and be as good as they were? So I'm going to give you my predictions, my preview. Players to watch for. Maybe some fantasy outlook and things that affect your fantasy draft from each division, and that's what we're doing here today. Of course, it's the Dave Talk Sports podcast, episode number 37. You find me right here on the YouTube channel named Dave Talk Sports. Please subscribe right there and comment below as well. You can find me on Twitter at DaveEttinger2, as well as on my Facebook page and my website, both named Dave Talk Sports as well. All right, so we navigate through traffic as always. Going a little bit of a different direction today because I said, look, I got out early today. It was 6 o'clock on the dot. I started walking out the door. I said, ooh, this is nice. I'm going to get home. I'm going to get 2 hours of sleep instead of an hour and 20 minutes before I got to go to my next job. This is a beautiful day. And then I get down, I get to the car, I open up my bag just to make sure I got everything. Keys, charger, the whole shebang. And what did I do? Like a dummy, forgot my charging wire for my phone up in the newsroom of the radio station. Now I know some will say, you could have just left it there. Well, not that I don't trust anybody, but a whole weekend, you never know. It could have disappeared. Also, I use it. I use it in the car everywhere I go. I'm using it right now. Everywhere I go, I charge the phone. I never, ever charge my phone in the house. It sounds weird, but I very rarely do unless it's completely out of battery. I just use a charger in the car. I spend enough time in the car when I'm driving to and from work. I pretty much drive everywhere all day long. So it's more important, I guess, than just, regular old charger. So anyway, so I had to run back. I had to legally park. I should have recorded this part on the podcast. I had to illegally park in front of a fire hydrant really quick. I had to run back up to the radio station. Took me maybe 2 minutes. Wasn't a big deal, but I had to get back up there. And luckily I didn't get a ticket. I got my charging wire back in the car, but it cost me a grand total of 12 minutes. 12 minutes that I could be sleeping. That doesn't sound like a big deal either, but 12 minutes is a lot when you're only set to get 2 hours. So, But anyway, it's all football all the time. Once we get past this, woman with 2 massive bags of cans. And she's numbered them. She's numbered the number of cans. Like you return the cans to the store, get the deposit back. She's got 220 cans and 76 bottles in her massive bags that are tied to her bike, which she was walking. So I had to wait for her to move out of the way. And now we can talk about football. You never know what's going to happen on the way home on the Dave Talk Sports podcast. I'm still in Manhattan. I'm navigating a different way to get to the Manhattan Bridge, as they call the Kosciuszko Bridge, and then off to the Williamsburg Bridge. And that's where we're headed right now. Little red light action. Anyway, football. Let's do it. So, start with the AFC North. You have the team that everyone's talking about, the Cleveland Browns. Last year, 7-8-1, the infamous tie in the NFL. I can't stand it, but it exists, and it happens virtually on average once, sometimes somewhere between once and twice a year. It actually happens on average. The Steelers, very interesting, drama-filled team. It's interesting to see what they're going to look like without Antonio Brown, without Le'Veon Bell. We're going to see. And then you have the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, what does he do? And the Bengals. All right, so let's start with the Browns. Cleveland Browns are the talk of the town. Are the Cleveland Browns going to win this division? They are the betting favorites. They are top 5 favorites to bet on for the Super Bowl. But they are Vegas's betting odds favorites to win the AFC North. Personally, I think it's possible, but I think it's a little out there. I think some teams are good on paper. Odell Beckham Jr. is on this team now. You get Kareem Hunt back when he's done with his suspension. Baker Mayfield is definitely the talk of the town. David Njoku, the tight end, and now Jarvis Landry becomes the number 2. The wild, skill set on the defensive end between Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb. I just think that it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting that not Bradley Chubb. What am I talking about? Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. But Myles Garrett, and then we'll see who else emerges from that defense. I'm tired. It's Friday. Don't mind me. I'm just making up names on teams that they don't actually play for. Anyway, the Browns are the talk of the town. Baker Mayfield, what is he going to do? Everyone thinks he's going to take this giant step forward. Now, on paper, again, this team is very good. The question is, what do they do? How many games do they win? I think that this is, despite the hype, right? And I think they have a window where they can win between 7, 8, and 9 games. I think this is an 8-8 team. I'm sorry. I think a lot of it does have to do with how good the Ravens are, how good Lamar Jackson is. So this is a lot of X factors in this division. But I see the Browns as an 8-8 team. The Browns actually had a draft pick last year, because they had the first and the 4th pick, where they got Baker Mayfield, and then they drafted Denzel Ward. Now, it's a short cornerback where people said he could be a shutdown corner, but shutdown corners don't really exist in the NFL anymore. So, kind of an interesting draft pick that most people criticized, myself included. And again, it's only one season, so we'll see what happens. But Denzel Ward had a fantastic season. Let me just clarify for everybody. I hate making mistakes. Bradley Chubb was the defensive player who fell into the lap of the Denver Broncos to play on the other side of Von Miller. So Myles Garrett is a guy who's going to look to be the leader of this defense and get after the quarterback, and that's who I was really talking about. So my apologies for that. Who they have is Nick Chubb, who I confused myself with, is their running back, and hopefully we'll see. He had a good year last year. We'll see if he can keep the starting job when Kareem Hunt comes back. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. So my apologies if you're still watching clarify a mistake from earlier. Anyway, I think this is an 8-8 team. I think they finished second in the division. I think this is still, despite losing Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, another year older, I still think this is the Steelers' division to lose. I really do. I think that they are the best all-around team in the division, best coach, best quarterback, and I think that they're a team that can still win 9 or 10 games and win this division. Now, the question is, what do they look like with those aforementioned names? You have Le'Veon Bell now with the Jets, my favorite team. You have Antonio Brown with the Hard Knock Raiders, Derek Carr and the likes of John Gruden. It's a very interesting dynamic, and we'll get to those divisions in the next episode of Dave Talk Sports, the podcast episode. Well, this is episode number 37. That'll be episode number 38. So it's an interesting dynamic. You now are looking to Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner. So it's an interesting dynamic to see what they become without those, what you could argue are the two best at their positions, receiver and running back. All right, as we get cut off by a big old Suburban, making a right from the left lane. That's always my favorite move. People do right in front of me. So we're still safe. We're still here. We're still talking. So it's interesting. You lose two guys that are arguably the best at their positions. And I still think they're going to win the division. My opinion, my humble opinion. We will see. Now the Ravens, I think, are the X factor here. I think the Ravens can finish third or first in this division. I think there's a wide range of things that could happen. I think they could go 6-10. I think they can go 11-5. I honestly think that this X factor is Lamar Jackson, their quarterback. I don't think we need to talk about anyone else on their roster. They have a good roster. Their defense is still good. They still have a running game. Their weapons aren't amazing offensively, but Lamar Jackson is a dual threat quarterback. He can definitely beat you with his feet, and he throws a pretty nice football. So he's a dual threat, similar, in my opinion, to what RG3 was as a rookie. I think he's just an absolute X factor, and I think that his team will have a window of wins that can vary, like I said, from 6 to 11. If he plays like a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the NFL, they could win 10 or 11 games. If he is just turning the ball over left and right, can't establish his own run, and the backfield's run, I just think that this team is going to be lost, and they're going to get swallowed up in this division and win 6 games. So I think that's the X factor in this division, the AFC North. Now, last but definitely least, the Cincinnati Bengals. AJ Green had surgery. He's out. Andy Dalton is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the league. I think he's absolutely atrocious. And I just don't like too many players on this roster. I just don't. I think the Bengals are destined to win 4 games this season and be, they'll get a great pick in the draft next year. But I think they're set to be an utter, I wouldn't say disappointment, because I don't think they're expected to be that good, but an utter failure of teams in the NFL that are set to win, like the Giants, like the Cardinals, which we'll get to when we get to the West divisions, and teams like the Giants and the like, and the Dolphins that are going to be between those 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 wins. But I think that this Bengals team is a 4-win team. I just think they're not going to be good at all. Now, let's move over to the other side, the NFC North. It's another interesting division. The Bears last year, 12-4. All right, Mitch Trubisky, didn't play a lot in college, went to North Carolina, and has been pretty good in the NFL so far. Kicker didn't help him much last year in the playoffs, the double doink, but I think that this team is just overrated. I know they got Khalil Mack, and he's like a man possessed out there on the field. Their defense is very good. But offensively speaking, I don't love their weapons. And I think that Mitch Trubisky, while he can run a little bit, I think is going to show you that he is fairly limited in the numbers that he can put up. And I think that this is going to be a team that is going to try to gut out some defensive, low-scoring wins. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Mitch Trubisky and Blake Bortles should belong in the same sentence at all, because Blake Bortles is absolutely terrible. But it's going to be that similar feeling where the Jaguars had this amazing defense and had a quarterback that held them back. And I see regression for Mitch Trubisky. I don't see this team winning anywhere near 12 games again. I still think they can compete for the division. This is still a very solid roster all around. But I think you're looking more like 8 or 9 wins opposed to 12. Now, the big X factor, we're talking about X factor in the AFC North. The X factor in the whole NFL is Aaron Rodgers. Okay, Aaron Rodgers has never afforded a good offensive line. He's not often afforded a great running game. He does have some offensive weapons to throw the ball to, but their defense is nothing to write home about either. Excuse me. I mean, look at this. Yesterday was the first sneeze. Now I'm yawning on the podcast. Hopefully I'm not having you yawn. So, this is the Dave Talk Sports podcast, episode number 37. It's a Friday morning. I am your host, Dave Ettinger. You can find me right here on my YouTube channel named Dave Talk Sports. And you can subscribe below the video, leave some comments below as well. A little traffic jam right here coming up. We're going to be careful. You can find me on Twitter at Dave Ettinger2. You can find me on Facebook and my website, also named Dave Talk Sports. Plenty of ways to find me. So, Aaron Rodgers, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. Most skilled quarterback in the NFL. I mean, it's, potential. You got some other guys, obviously Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers. There's other guys out there, and year to year, there's, Cam Newton comes in there, Russell Wilson comes in there when they're healthy. So there's a lot of guys who could be considered the best quarterback in the NFL. Even Matt Ryan won an MVP. But people argue that Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback of all time. No. He's very, very, very good. But Aaron Rodgers gets hurt virtually every year, and that's why he's such a big X factor. Despite the offensive line struggles, despite the average defense, and lack of a running game, I just think that he gets hurt every year, and that's why he's such an X factor. When he's good, he's better than anybody in the world. When he's not so good, it's because he's sitting in the trainer's room and on the sideline. So, we'll see. I do ultimately think, though, that they win this division. I think they win 9 or 10 games, and I think that Aaron Rodgers stays healthy for once. New coach, new system. I think that you're going to see receivers emerge, and I think you're going to see, Devontae Adams has already shown you he's one of the better receivers in the league, but I think you're going to see him throw his name into that elite conversation with DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., Antonio Brown, all these guys. I think he's going to be in that conversation this year, and I think you finally get that. And then there's the Vikings. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins, I think this is a good team. I think Dalvin Cook, if he can ever stay on the field and stay healthy, gives them an elite option at the running back position. Potentially the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL between Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, and a very, very formidable defense. I think Kirk Cousins is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's not just because he puts up numbers, because a lot of guys put up numbers. I think he plays well in the big moment. We'll see what he does this year, but I think that this is a team, they all going to kind of beat each other up. I think that the Vikings, the Packers, the Bears, they're all going to be between 8 and 10 wins, and I think you're going to be seeing kind of what the NFC East used to be, where these teams beat each other up. I think you're going to find that a lot. And, we'll see. I think they're all fighting for the division, but ultimately I think it's the Packers who emerge. Now, don't hate me, Lions fans, but you guys are not good. Not even a little bit. Matthew Stafford sucks. He's always hurt. Did I mention Matthew Stafford sucks? I don't know what weapons they have to speak of anymore. I don't know who's worth talking about, writing about, reading about, watching, going to watch play. I think this team wins 5 games. I think they're very bad. They haven't been good in a while. No Calvin Johnson, no Barry Sanders. They're not very good. So, sorry, Matthew Stafford. You suck. On that note, that is our NFC, AFC North divisional previews. A lot of good individual players as well. I think that obviously Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins can be a value play in fantasy. I think that he's going to give you numbers like, a top 8 quarterback, and you can get him a little bit later because he doesn't get that name recognition as an Aaron Rodgers. Now, he's not going to do what Aaron Rodgers does, but could be as good as Drew Brees. Drew Brees is probably going to go a couple rounds ahead of Kirk Cousins. I think Dalvin Cook is an absolute X factor, could win you a fantasy football league if he could stay healthy, depending upon where he's drafted. Like I mentioned, Devontae Adams, elite. And on the other side of the ball, you're going to see Juju Smith-Schuster and Connor from the running back position. They're going to get a lot of play. There's really their only 2 weapons there. So they're going to be good players. The only question is, how high do they get drafted? Now, Lamar Jackson, I'm not drafting him in fantasy, but he has the ability to give you extra points with his legs. And he runs a couple of those in for touchdowns. He's going to be solid, but nothing writing home about him. I think fantasy-wise, I think the Browns are going to be better with Odell Beckham Jr., when Kareem Hunt's back, with Chubb, with Baker Mayfield. They're going to be better on, and Njoku is going to be a sneaky tight end play this year. I think their numbers are going to be better in fantasy than they are in real life, and resulting in wins. So, just my humble opinion. And on that note, we say see ya on a Friday. Enjoy the beer.